Ever get that feeling? Someone throws out a financial term, at like a dinner party or something, and suddenly you feel like you missed the memo in the group chat.
Totally.
It's like everyone else is fluent in finance, and you're stuck trying to discreetly Google what net worth even means.
Been there. And honestly, sometimes it feels like those conversations become more about like bragging rights than actual financial understanding.
Right. It's less about the numbers themselves and more about using them to, size each other up.
Exactly. When really it should be about taking control of your own financial landscape.
Which is why we're doing this deep dive breaking down not just what net worth is, but how understanding it can actually, help you level up your financial game.
It's a power move, for sure. At its core, net worth is basically just a snapshot of your financial health, like where you stand at this very moment.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it's actually a pretty simple equation when you get down to it. Assets minus liabilities equals your net worth.
Assets minus liabilities. We got it.
Think of it like a seesaw, assets on one side, liabilities on the other. Your net worth is all about finding that balance point.
Okay, I like that analogy. So it's not just about how much money you have stashed away. It's about understanding all the things that contribute to those assets and those liabilities, right?
You got it?
So, like, would my trustee, albeit slightly beat up car, count as an asset in this equation?
Absolutely. It might not be a Ferrari, but it still holds value. And don't forget about those things that might not have a price tag, but still mean something, like maybe you inherited some cool vintage stuff from your grandparents, or you've got family heirlooms tucked away.
Okay, feeling slightly richer already. But now, let's talk about the other side of that seesaw. The liabilities. Those are the things that can weigh us down financially, right?
Exactly. Think of those as like the financial commitments that impact your overall net worth, things like your mortgage, any student loans you might be paying off, outstanding credit card
Hey,
balances.
those definitely come to mind.
But even things like car loans or personal loans fall into this category.
So it's like creating this like detailed map of your own personal financial terrain,
Yeah.
highlighting both the peaks and the valleys.
I like that.
But here's a question that's been on my mind. Let's say you're doing pretty well income-wise.
Uh-huh.
Does that automatically mean you've got a super high net worth?
That's where things get interesting. You could have a friend who seems to be, living the high life, constantly jet-setting and posting about it.
We all know that person.
Right. But what you don't see is that maybe their spending habits are masking a whole lot of debt.
Right.
Having a high income doesn't automatically equal a high net worth if you're not managing your finances strategically.
So it's not just about how much you earn, it's about how you handle what you've got.
Exactly.
Which brings us right back to why understanding your net worth is so important in the first place. It's like having this financial compass that guides your decisions.
100%. Knowing your net worth gives you the power to make smart choices about your money. Whether you're saving up for a down payment on a house, planning for early retirement, or just aiming for more financial stability overall. It's all about having that clear starting point.
And a clear plan, too. Because once you have that understanding, you can actually start setting realistic goals and tracking your progress.
Exactly. It's about taking control and making your money work for you.
It's about taking charge, right? Not letting the numbers just kind of happen to you.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting, because once you do have a grasp on your net worth, then it's like, okay, how do you actually improve it? And I think a lot of people, they get kind of stuck there.
Totally. They freeze up, they see those numbers, and it's like, now what?
It's not about obsessing over that number, right? It's about using it as a tool to make more strategic financial moves,
Okay, so let's talk strategy. Where do we even begin? Because I think it's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed, especially if those liabilities are looking a little intimidating compared to the assets.
For sure, it can feel daunting. I think a really good starting point is tackling any high-interest debt you might have, like credit card balances and stuff. Imagine it as the low-hanging fruit of your net worth journey.
Love that. Low-hanging fruit.
Because each payment you make towards that debt, it's basically like adding back to your overall net worth.
It's like plugging a leak in your financial ship, right?
So, okay, let's say you've got a handle on those high-interest debts. What's the next level play in this whole net worth game? Well, that's where we can start talking about the magic of compound interest. Have you heard of that before? Think of it like a financial snowball effect. So you start with even small but consistent savings and investments.
Okay, small but mighty.
Exactly. And over time, those gains, they actually start to generate their own returns. It's a long game, but it's super powerful.
It's not one of those get-rich-quick schemes, that's for sure. It's more about, like, a strategic approach to growing your wealth over time.
100%. And the thing is, it doesn't even require having like massive sums of money to get started.
That's good to hear.
Even just small but consistent contributions like to a retirement account or maybe a diversified investment portfolio can make a huge impact in the long run.
It's about making those choices now that your future self will high-five you for later.
Right. Future you will definitely thank you.
But let's be real for a second. Because it's not always easy to resist that whole treat yourself mentality, especially with like a million tempting things out there constantly vying for our attention and, let's be honest, our paychecks.
Oh, absolutely. And
Mm.
look, there's definitely a balance to be struck between like enjoying your money today and investing in your future.
Right, because we've got to live a little too.
Exactly. And that's where being mindful about your spending comes in. It's not about depriving yourself. It's more about being intentional with your financial choices.
So it's about like pausing before you buy that thing and asking yourself, do I really need another pair of shoes? Or would this money be better spent on an experience? Or maybe going towards those long-term investment goals we were talking about.
Exactly. It's about aligning your spending with what truly matters to you,
Yeah.
your values, your long-term goals.
I love that because it might feel like you're making these small kind of everyday choices, but they can really add up and have a huge impact on your overall net worth over time.
100%.
It's like those little things, those little choices are like tiny brushstrokes that over time create this whole masterpiece of financial well-being.
I love that. That's such a good way to put it.
Okay, but let's say you're doing all the right things. You've tackled that high interest debt, you're all about that mindful spending, you're investing consistently, you're looking at a pretty healthy net worth. You're
Right.
feeling good, right?
It's amazing. That is definitely a sign you're on the right track. But this is where I think it's important to introduce a concept that sometimes gets overlooked, and that's the idea of liquidity.
Liquidity. Okay, I'll be honest, that sounds a little bit like financial jargon to me. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? What are we talking about here?
It's not really good or are bad, but it's definitely something to be aware of. So liquidity basically just refers to how easily you can actually access your money.
Okay.
Like you could technically have a really high net worth on paper, but if it's all tied up in assets that are hard to like immediately cash out, like real estate or certain types of retirement accounts,
Yeah, okay.
then it might not be super accessible if you need cash in a pinch.
So it's like having like a treasure chest full of gold, but not being able to actually open it when you desperately need to buy groceries?
That's a perfect way to put it. So imagine like an unexpected situation pops up, right? Maybe it's a medical bill. Maybe your car decides to die on you, or maybe it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity to invest in something really special.
Those are all very different scenarios.
They are, but that's where having liquidity becomes crucial because you need to be able to access your money when those curveballs come your way.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Like between growing your net worth over the long term, like we were talking about with investing, but also making sure you've got enough readily available cash to handle those unexpected twists and turns that life throws at you.
Exactly. It's like having that financial safety net. And for most people, that means having a healthy emergency fund cash that you can easily access, just in case.
It's like that peace of mind knowing you're prepared to, navigate those bumps in the road without totally derailing your entire financial journey.
Exactly. And just like your overall net worth, your liquidity needs are probably going to change over time, like as you move through different life stages. So the key is to just be aware of it and adjust your financial strategy as needed.
It's like having that buffer, just
Yeah.
knowing you've got that flexibility if things get weird.
Exactly. Options and peace of mind, those are valuable. And, it makes me think about how, like, we often forget to factor in the emotional side of all this, when we're talking about net worth and finances.
It's not just about the numbers themselves, it's about how those numbers make you feel.
Right. Like feeling in control of your money, having that sense of security, and knowing you've got options that does something for you.
It's empowering, like a weight off your shoulders, when you're not constantly worried about money.
100%.
Yeah.
That feeling, that sense of financial well-being,
Yeah,
you can't put a price tag on that.
absolutely not. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We talked about all those everyday things that factor into our assets and liabilities.
Yeah.
The whole compound interest thing, which still feels a little bit like magic to me, I gotta say.
The magic of compounding.
And then that whole liquidity piece, which, to be honest, I think gets overlooked way too often.
For sure.
So, as we kind of wrap things up here, what's the main thing you hope our listeners take away from this conversation?
Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway is that you don't have to become like a financial expert overnight to make a difference.
Huh.
It's more about taking that first step, getting curious about your own finances, and then using that knowledge to start making like more informed decisions,
Yeah.
decisions that actually align with your goals, not some generic advice you saw online.
It's about taking control of your own financial future at your own pace.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a race. There are going to be bumps along the way. We've all been there. But I think the important thing is that with each step you take, with each choice you make, you're building towards something.
Towards a more secure future. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, but before we say goodbye, I want to leave our listeners with a little something to think about, to kind of keep this momentum going.
Okay, I like it.
So imagine for a second you've got this like financial magic wand. Very powerful, no limitation.
Oh, dangerous.
Right. And you can wave that wand and instantly improve one aspect of your net worth, whatever that looks like for you.
Oh, yeah.
What would you change? And more importantly, why?
Ooh, that ISS a good one. Would you pay off a student loan? Or maybe finally make that big investment you've been putting off? What about that emergency fund we talked about? Would you magically make that happen?
Right. The possibilities.
It's going to be different for everyone. And honestly, I think that's what makes this whole journey so interesting,
Mhm.
because it's about figuring out what matters most to you and then actually taking those steps to make it a reality.
It's like creating your own personal financial roadmap, one that actually aligns with your values, your goals, your definition of success. 100%. So I hope that as you're going about your week, our listeners will keep that magic wand question in mind, because maybe it'll spark an idea or help you revisit a financial goal that's been on the back burner, or even just encourage you to take that next step, whatever that looks like for you.
I love it.
Because knowledge is power. And after this deep dive, you are all armed with the knowledge and the power to shape your financial future.
Yes, couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of net worth, everyone. Here's to making smart choices, feeling confident about our finances, and most importantly, building a brighter financial future for ourselves one step at a time.